Welcome to the Sleep Dives channel. Have you ever felt like you're stuck on a hamster wheel, just solving the same problem over and over and over again? Well, in this explainer, we're diving into pages 176 to 210, and we're going to learn how to get off that wheel. We're moving beyond those temporary fixes to start redesigning the very systems that cause the problems in the first place. And we'll even get a glimpse of how computer simulations can help us see the future. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to face a critical choice, a real fork in the road that decides if we succeed or fail. Then, we'll start digging to uncover the hidden side effects of all those quick fixes we love. After that, we get really practical, learning to redesign our reality with a 7-step plan to bust through gridlock. And finally, we'll level up, exploring how you can go from a back-of-the-napkin sketch to a full-blown simulation. You know, at the very heart of any problem, there's always this fork in the road. You can take the easy path, right? The quick fix that just papers over the symptom. Or you can take the harder path, the one that actually addresses the root cause. And honestly, this one choice, it determines everything. It determines whether you solve the problem for good or if you get trapped in a cycle you can't escape. To see what I mean, just look at the story of 2 villages in Togo. In one village, a Musakope, an Eid group just gave them a water pump. Seemed like a perfect quick fix, right? Well, it was, until it broke. They had no skills, no money, no one organized to fix it, so the gift became totally useless. Now contrast that with the village of Iole. There, the community was guided to build a whole system around the pump. They set up a management committee, they trained a mechanic, they even had a fund for repairs. See the difference? One was a temporary patch, the other built a permanent capability. This pattern has a name, and it is one of the most important ones to know. It's called shifting the burden. The first village, Amusokope, shifted the burden of their water security onto that gifted pump. It felt good, it was easy, but it sucked all the attention away from the real fundamental solution, which was building their own capacity. And over time, the ability to solve their own problem just withers away. And that's how you get a dangerous addiction to the quick fix.
And trust me, this isn't just about villages. This happens everywhere in business. Take the Burson Benson Power Tool Company. They were getting hammered by defective products. Their quick fix? They created something they called a lathe hospital. Basically a fancy repair shop. But here's the crazy part. The better the hospital got at fixing things, the more the company relied on it. And all those resources, all that attention, got drained away from where it was really needed, fixing the manufacturing process itself.
Okay, so recognizing this shifting the burden pattern is step 1. Huge step. The next is to learn to see beyond the obvious fix. And we do that by asking one absolutely critical question. What are the unintended consequences? What else is this quick fix messing up somewhere else in the system? This is the question that changes everything. It's what turns you from being a victim of the system into a system sleuth. When your solution works for a bit, but then the problem roars back, maybe even worse than before, you have to stop and ask, wait a minute, what else did my fix touch? What new fires did it start? All right, let's put ourselves in a manager's shoes for a second. It's a classic scene. You're under intense pressure to cut the budget. So what are the obvious levers to pull? Well, you reduce headcount, you put off some of that non-essential maintenance, and you slash the marketing budget. On paper, it looks great. Costs go down immediately. Problem solved, right? Well, here's the nasty little secret. Cutting staff tanks morale and productivity. Deferring maintenance leads to massive, costly equipment failures down the road. And slashing marketing? Well, that shrinks your revenue. Every single one of those fixes creates its own vicious cycle, and eventually, they drive costs even higher than where you started. The solution literally becomes the engine of its own failure. Seeing those hidden loops, that's the breakthrough moment. It allows you to stop just reacting to symptoms and start actually redesigning the structure of the whole system. And that process always begins with the invisible driver of everything we do, our mental models. A mental model? It's really just the invisible story we tell ourselves to justify our actions. Think about that manager cutting costs. What was the story in their head? Probably something like, look, I'll just manage the consequences later. I have to hit my numbers now. It's only when we drag those hidden assumptions out into the light that we have any chance of changing the behavior they create. So how do we actually do this redesign? It comes down to 2 key moves. First, you have to weaken the addiction to the quick fix. There's a story of a lawn care company drowning in debt. The first thing they did was create a strict policy to stop borrowing money automatically. They broke that dangerous reflex. Second, you have to strengthen the fundamental solution. That same company created new, powerful incentives for aggressively cutting costs and actively finding new customers. You see? You starve the bad habit and you feed the healthy one. Now, we can take this kind of thinking and build it into a really practical step-by-step process for teams. Daniel Kim developed this powerful 7-step method to break through that organizational gridlock. You know that feeling where everyone is working really hard, but nothing is actually moving forward? The real genius of this framework is that it shifts the conversation away from blaming people and towards mapping the system that everyone is stuck in. You start by just agreeing on the problem symptom. Then each team maps out their own quick fixes. But here's the crucial part. They also map out the bad side effects those fixes have on other teams. Suddenly, all those hidden connections become visible, and the whole group can see the fundamental solutions that will actually help everyone. Okay, so everything we've talked about so far, the stories, the archetypes, it's all been qualitative. It's about understanding the shape and structure of the problem. But if you really want to test your assumptions and see how these systems play out over time, you need to go from the artist's sketch to the engineer's blueprint, computer modeling. John Sturman from MIT has this fantastic analogy for this. He calls archetypes training wheels. They are incredibly helpful for getting you started, for helping you get the feel of systems thinking. But computer models, those are the blueprints. They force you to be rigorous. They make you put numbers on your assumptions and actually test how the system is going to behave. To build a model, you have to get your head around stocks and flows. A stock is just an accumulation of something. Think of the water in a bathtub or the national debt. A flow is the rate of change. It's the water coming from the tap or the annual government deficit. So many people get this wrong. They think that cutting the deficit reduces the debt. It doesn't. It just means the debt, the stock, grows a little bit slower. You only reduce the debt when you run a surplus. And this is where the magic of simulation happens. You can map out a company's hiring process, and on paper it looks really simple. But once you add in real-world delays, time to hire, time to train, and you run the simulation, a totally hidden dynamic just pops out. You see the system will constantly overshoot its hiring target, then panic and lay off people, and undershoot it. It gets locked in this costly, painful cycle of hiring and firing that was completely invisible before. But it is important to have a little word of caution here. As John Sturman also says, the software doesn't do the thinking for you. A model is only as good as the assumptions you put into it. Without really rigorous, clear thinking, these powerful tools can just help you make bad decisions, but with a lot more confidence. So while computer modeling is an incredible tool for big organizations, these core ideas are also deeply personal. The real power here is applying this to the systems in our own lives. So let's try to find your own shifting the burden pattern right now. Just take a second and think about a problem that keeps coming back in your life. What is the quick fix you always reach for? Is it grabbing a painkiller for that bad back instead of actually doing the physical therapy? Is it just venting to a friend instead of having that one difficult conversation you know you need to have? Try to identify that quick fix, its hidden costs, and then be really honest. What's the fundamental solution that you're avoiding? All right, let's bring all of this together with a quick recap. We started this journey by facing that critical choice between a quick fix and a real solution. We learned how to spot the shifting the burden pattern, how to trace its hidden consequences, and how to expose the invisible mental models driving our behavior. But I think the most important takeaway is this. We are not just victims of these systems. We can actually be their architects. And that leaves us with one last question to think about. Every system, whether it's in your job, your family, or just inside your own head, is following an invisible script. Now that you have the tools to actually see that script, what are you going to do to rewrite it?